In this video lesson about Grasshopper, we're going to continue to explore the basics. So in the previous lesson, we checked the basic algorithm here, and we explained the passages from going to a point and then transform that into a line, and then using a curve, and then a shape, then a surface, and finally how to get to a closed polysurface, which is also called a solid. So we saw all the process, and we talked about how to set up some really basic algorithm, and we talk about the final objective, final result. So this is where we should always start. So to have an objective and to understand how to get there using whatever steps we want. And if we want to use more or less nodes and passages or processes in the algorithm, or if we want to do it more in Rhino. So it depends on our decision. So in this video, I'm going to continue and we're going to make another example. We use mainly the extrusion node in the previous lesson to create these various extrusions from shapes, which are open and closed polysurfaces. And in this video, we're going to talk about revolving or revolve. And again, we're gonna try to understand how to get from, starting from the objective, going backward. So this is something that we usually call like reverse engineering, where we try to do something by going like backward and backward and try to figure out the whole process of the various steps that are used to create something. So in this case, let's assume I want to create a base, which is a perfect shape for the revolving process, or to test the revolve tool. And you find a lot of different shapes, but I'm gonna go with something simple without handles or any details. So this one here will be fine, which is a really simple shape. And I can just take a snapshot of this and save the image. So I will save the image in an image folder in my Grasshopper folder. Only thing is, well, to read the image, you need like a JPEG or PNG. So I'm gonna show you later how you can fix that, but you can just take a snapshot if you want. So we need the front for this because we're gonna model the shape from the front. I can also change the view settings here in Rhino by clicking on the little arrow and change it to the front right here. So we have the front view here, and then we have the perspective above, and that's fine for what we need to do because this is a object that is based on a front shape that we're gonna create. So let's go now and, well, let's see where we can start. Well, I told you that the main objective here is to create the base, and there you go. So I'm gonna show you quickly. This is coming from Raw Pixel, which is a website where you can get free stuff. This one here is public domain, as you can see, so you can download it, low resolution, high resolution. We don't really need this high resolution. Low will be fine, so we don't need too many pixels. And it's a surface in Rhino, so it's a type of surface that we can create. So if you go in the surface menu in Rhino, you will find the add the picture plane. So this is how you add references, or a way to add references using Rhino. Also, you can find it in the surface tool, and there you go, it's right there. So you click on the little icon, navigate where you save the image, and just open the image. And you can see here we are in Rhino, but you can do it also in Grasshopper. I'm gonna show you that. So it's asking us to create a rectangle. So it's asking us if we wanna do it vertical or 3 points or from the center or 1 to 1. So you have some options here. You can click directly in the command bar, and now you can see that the image is there. So I'm gonna click, I'm snapping here to the grid, and then I can reposition this, I can resize it. It doesn't matter if you put it in the correct measures because you can always resize it later, or you can resize it anytime, but this is one way we can do it. And I do prefer to work in Rhino with this because it's not necessary to use Grasshopper sometimes. And in this case, it's not necessary, but I'm going to show you how you can do it also with Grasshopper. Now, one thing you need to notice is that the bottom of the vase is going to be flat. It's not going to be round as you see here, because this is just the perspective making it round. Now, if you press the space bar in Grasshopper, you can search for image, and you can see there are many ways you can drop in an image. This one here is import image node, and also you have this, let me show you here, this other one is called image resource, and then you have also others. But just to show you here, you need to right click with the mouse and get the image, and you will see it also in Grasshopper. So you see it in Grasshopper, and to see it also in Rhino, you need to drop that inside the image node, and you can see the image right there. Well, it's not actually visible because we are looking at a wireframe now, which contains a lot of faces. So we need to turn off those faces to see it properly. But anyway, also we have other parameters here. And also we have like synchronization, meaning that if you change the original picture, it's going to synchronize and it's going to update. It's always going to be synchronized. Now, if I hold Control, click and drag, I can deactivate that. And you can also like get it directly from here. You don't really need that extra node. That was just to show you that you have, you know, some options here to work with the images. So you can see here, you can do select from a directory or select other stuff. You can see now it's appearing even if it's not linked to the other node where the image is visible. So you have like more options like usual. And so what I want to do, well, I'm just gonna drop it in, doesn't matter. And also I want to fix this visualization because I don't really see the image. So I'm gonna go to the display and turn off the preview mesh edges, or Control M, the shortcut key. So now we can see the picture. And it's a lot bigger than the one we put in directly in Rhino. And it also is rotated or oriented differently. But this is because we need to define here with the next parameter a rectangle. And the next one is going to be samples in the X and samples in the epsilon. So meaning the resolution of the image. So if I click and put a slider here and drop these links into the slider, and you can see now nothing is visible. So let's edit this. So right click and edit, and I'm going to change here the numbers. So I'm going to put a range from, let's say 0 to, let's say 100, and say okay. And so now you can see that we are basically managing the pixel of the image. So the resolution, this is something you can do, as you can see, dynamically in Grasshopper, which is pretty handy. And also I'm going to increase this to 1K, so meaning 1000 pixels. So that's going to be a little bit higher in the quality, but we only need the image as a reference, as a reminder of what we need to do. So that's fine if you don't have like, you can also use a sketch. You can create your own sketch and drop it in as a base for your design, just, you know, to have something to work on top. And what I'm going to do now is go into the curves, because we need to create a curve. And I'm going to use a rectangle first because we need to define the rectangle. And this is going to be like the frame where we're going to put the image into. And this is composed by points. So you can define 3 points. Actually, you can also do something quicker. And so I'm going to create the rectangle parameter, and I'm going to define the rectangle directly in Rhino. So right click and set one rectangle. So this way you can see we still have 3 points, vertical, center, etc., etc. Let's do 3 points. So first point is going to be the origin, and then we're going to have like the X, so the width, and then we're going to have the height. So we have defined like this rectangle using the corners basically. So this is one way you can do it, but you know, you have different ways. You can also insert measurements. Okay, so that's the frame, and the frame is now oriented properly on the front because we constructed